Okay, I'm going to show how to make gum paste roses with no cutters. So we've been talking about different ways to make them, and I thought this would be a good way to demonstrate that. So you start with a ball about this big and just flatten it out. I start with these cones on toothpicks. I either use a toothpick or a drink stir because they're plastic and you can stick them directly into the cake, and the same with the toothpicks. Or you can pull them out usually. I think this one's in it pretty well. But you can pull them out if you don't want the toothpicks or anything stuck into the cake. So start with a cone like this. You just want to put some water, just have water on that. And wrap that around the cone. And you don't really need to worry about the cone showing through because that's all going to be covered up. But just make sure that the top is covered so that you're not going to see down in there. Unless you're going to color them. If you're going to color them red, then that's fine. That makes no difference. Alright, so once you have the cone, start making some petals. I've already made some. All you need to do is roll them out in a little, start with a little marble of gum paste and just start pressing. And I'm paying most of attention onto the top edge, which is going to be the top edge of the petal. So it's thicker down here, it's more of the rose petal shape, and it's thinner up here. And for these I use a poppy press that puts the imprints on it. And that's kind of a pretty good all-purpose press for flower imprints. So now I have the flower with the veins on it. Take a spoon that I've broken off and form it along like that and just let it dry. Okay, so I have some that I've already done. I started one here. These are easier to do if you do them in layers and let them dry because it's easier to press. And if they're too soft, it's going to be harder to press. So this is the one we just did. I'm going to take some more water. Just paint that on two of the petals. If you want to use gum glue, that's fine. If you want to use, you know, it's like Tylose with water, that works too, whatever. And just wrap those relatively tightly around the top of there. So what I do is I do a whole bunch of these, let them set up. And you don't have to let them dry overnight. You can just dry them until they're easier to press onto without ripping them apart. So this one's been drying for a little bit. So first you do 2 petals, then 3, and then another row of 5. If you go look at a real rose, I have never seen a real rose that has 2, 3, 5. That's what everybody says you're supposed to do with gum paste, but you really can do as many as you want. Alright, now I'm pressing this pretty hard on the bottom. Once you get around to the side, you want to wrap the last petal underneath the first one. And keep these petals about the same level as the top. When a real rose opens up, it starts out with the bud, the petals are all the same height, and then as it opens up, the outer ones drop. So you don't want to put the outer petals up very high once you get to the outside. So you got this now, and I actually can go ahead, I'll go ahead and do one of the outer shells. If you want to do these on wire, you can, and then you can hang them upside down to dry. I find that if you just let the gum paste dry enough on its own, you don't really need to hang them upside down. It'll just kind of open up a little bit. Okay, so now I'm back with this one. Alright, so I'm going to overlap this, start the middle of this one where the joint of that is. And again, don't put it too high. If you put it up like this, it doesn't make any sense. So just overlap them a little bit. Work your way around. And they will move around on you. If the inner part is soft, it's going to be harder. If the inner part is dried and it's hard, then you can press really hard on it and it makes it just easier to place the petals. And see, like I'm sticking my finger there. If that was dry, I could get a really good grip on it. But since this is still damp, I really can't. But for demonstration purposes, that's what we'll do. Alright, so since these dried on the spoon, they kind of have the shape already. If you wanted to add another layer, you could do that, or you could put some on wires and wire them onto this. And the good thing about doing the gum paste like this, you can either add a calyx on the bottom, or you could take the toothpick out completely and cut this off with scissors when you're putting it on the cake, and that way it doesn't stick out so far in the cake. And sometimes if these are sitting at an angle on the cake like this, on the tiers, I'll take scissors and cut them in both directions so it's a V. And then you can just stick them right on the cake. but you see how it angles out just because it was drying on the spoon. And that's it. And I can put this in the styrofoam. It'll dry. It's not going anywhere. If you need to, if you want to put bigger petals on, put a piece of tinfoil like this and cup it up around, and you can shape the tinfoil to where you want the petals to be. So if this opens up, it won't go farther than the tinfoil will let it. And that is basically how to make a quick gum paste rose with just single petals and no tools. And that's it.